Hey, all right. Good. This will be morning for you. It's evening for me. We just got home from Cowboy Church, had a great service, and we're just excited about having opportunity to get away a few days, enjoy some family time. I know it's Thanksgiving weekend. This will be your Friday message, and I just want to share just a minute. I was preaching. If you get a chance, go back and watch the Chisholm Trail Cowboy Church service, the Tuesday night service. You can fast forward through all the music if you want. Otherwise, enjoy some good music. It was pretty good, if I do say so myself. But anyway, it was. No, I'm having fun with that. But go and be blessed, and but get to that word, because I was talking about. Just that we're God's masterpiece, and it's pretty amazing how God can take our messes and or our lives or whatever comes, and He has a great plan for us. And our mistakes can't derail us from receiving what God has for us. And so I want to take you to Mark chapter 5, and this was a verse of scripture. It was in my notes, but I didn't get to them. And I just want to share this because I've been teaching all week on faith. Believe in God for, to receive, and I've just been teaching. I teach this all the time. How God can do amazing things if we just learn to expect that. But here was a woman in Mark chapter 5. Now this is the story of Jairus and him coming to Jesus. He asked for Jesus to come heal his daughter who is sick. And they're on the way. But while they're on the way, something else amazing happens. And I just want to jump into this part of the story where this woman, it says in verse 24, the other part's great, but for the sake of time, I want to focus on just this part because I was talking about transformation and restoration that happens when God comes into our lives. And in verse 24, it says, Jesus went with him, talking about Jairus. So there's a crowd of people. All the people that followed crowding around him. So there's just a huge crowd of people. But it says in verse 25, a woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with a constant bleeding. So she had what King James says, an issue of blood. She had this issue and it says that she had suffered a great deal from many doctors over the years, had spent everything she had to pay them, but she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. Sometimes whenever we try to do everything on our own, we try to do everything with the resources that we have, sometimes there's still no answer. There's still no provision. But I'm here to challenge you to touch the hem of Jesus' garment. In other words, just come to Jesus with just full abandonment and decide, I'm going to trust you, God. I'm going to trust you to take care of these issues in my life. It says that she had an issue of blood when you read it out of the King James. Well, we've all got issues. That was the way God ministered it to me one time as I was reading that story. It doesn't have to be that issue. What issue do you have? What issue do I have? What issue anybody that we might encounter have? Jesus is the answer to those things. And I know that may sound so simple, but it is that simple to come to Jesus. But notice how she came. And I want to read along, or I hope you can read along with me. It says, in fact, she'd gotten worse. Verse 27, she had heard about Jesus, so she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe. She heard about Jesus. What did she hear? He was a great man. He could really preach good. No, she heard the lame were walking, the blind were seeing, the dead were being raised, that those that were demon possessed were being free. So whatever condition they were in, they came to Jesus and in his presence received the thing that was needed. And isn't it amazing? She'd done everything she could do. She came to Jesus. Sometimes it takes us getting to the end of ourselves. We have to get to the end of who we are in order to grab hold of Jesus's garment. Look at what it says. It says, for she'd heard about Jesus, so she came up behind him through the crowd to touch his robe. You say, well, what's the significance of touching his robe? Well, you could tie in some significance to it. It was a fine robe. It had the there's a emphasis on the hem of it, and that sort of thing. I've heard people try to make a sermon out of it, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but here's what I believe. You see this, verse 28 says, "For she thought to herself." Why did she go touch his robe? Because she thought to herself. She heard about Jesus, so faith came into her heart. She thought in herself. In other words, in the King James, New King James says she said. Well, how do you say? You form a thought. So she made this decision. She set her heart. She set her faith. And she said, if I can just touch his robe, I'll be healed. She set her faith. That didn't come from just her wishing something. That just wasn't something she contrived in her mind. It was something that when she heard about Jesus, she heard about the way that people touched him or he touched them, that they received. She knew in her heart, and God gave her that perception within that faith that she'd received when she heard about him. That if I can just touch it, if I can just get to him, he doesn't have to say or do anything. I just got to touch his robe. I'll be healed. Immediately the bleeding stopped, and she could feel in her body that she had been healed of her terrible condition. It says Jesus realized at once that healing power had gone from him. So he turned around in the crowd and he said, "Who touched my robe?" Now, the disciples said, "Well, Lord, look at this crowd pressing around you. How can you ask who touched you? There's hundreds of people touching you. There's all kinds of people touching you, Jesus. What are you talking about?" But something was different. He said he realized at once the healing power had gone out of him. You see, that's what I want to challenge you with today, is come to Jesus for his healing power. It could be, first of all, spiritual healing for our sin. Then it gets into healing for the condition that we're in resulting from that sin. It could be mental and emotional healing, physical healing. Jesus came to take care of all of those things. And I believe if we come to him in faith, knowing that we connect with him, we're connecting with true life. We're connecting with hope. We're connecting with power. We're connecting him with healing, with transformation, with restoration. All those things that represent what Jesus came, how he demonstrated it through his life on the cross, not his life in the world, and then finished that work by going to the cross and giving us access to a living God. It's an amazing thing. You may think, well, I don't know about all that. Just know this, that Jesus knew the condition that you were in, the need that you had for him. He knew exactly where you're at in your life. And he came to provide, first of all, salvation, and then restoration and healing and provision for our lives. So it says, who touched my robe? His disciples said, who could have touched him? Verse 32 says this, but he kept on looking around to see who had done it. Then a frightened woman, trembling at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell on her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. She told him, she said, I heard about you. I believed that if I could touch your robe, I could be healed. I touched it and I got it. I got healed. Notice this, it says, and he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. The King James says whole. And he says, go in peace. Your suffering is over. I want you to understand in the original, if you look at this in the original Greek, it means that you've been made well or you've been made whole. So the problem, the issue, had been solved. But then he says, go in peace. And this is a phrase that needs the explanation, because it doesn't just mean go in this immediate thing. It says go and be being or continuing in it. It's a continuation thought or understanding when you look at that in the original text. It means that you received it now and maintain it. You received it now, continue to walk in it. Don't let anybody talk you out of it. You know, this could be for one person, it could be for many of you. But don't ever let somebody talk you out of what God has promised you and what you've received. Because I'll guarantee you, the devil doesn't want you to win. And he'll use sometimes, people to help convince you that it's not really yours, it's not going to work, it's going to come back, it's going to whatever. Just settle. Jesus, you're my source. You're my redeemer. You're my healer. You're my salvation. You're my strength. You're my life. Just keep those things established. Walk in it. And just like this woman, go in peace, the peace that Jesus brings. Well, listen, as you go through your day, like I always say, go find somebody to bless and go get them for Jesus. Love y'all.